Hello everyone. We are going to cover testing and installation of stuff now. I went down to school today and I was going to record more stuff of me using the equipment, and I realized if I show you how to use it now and then you have to do this stuff in 3 months, you're not going to remember. I have some videos on here, and the rest of it we're going to demonstrate for you before you have to do the labs when that time comes around in July, something along those lines. So I didn't see a purpose of me trying to do it. All right, so let's look at, first of all, the things that you better be aware of when you deal with anything that has to do with battery acid and electrical systems, right? Do not allow battery acid to come in contact with your skin, eyes, or clothing. Observe polarity when making connections to a battery. I can tell you that that happens more times than you can imagine as people hooking stuff up wrong. Always disconnect the negative cable first and connect the negative cable last. Avoid arcing or open flames near a battery since hydrogen gas comes out of it. Just thought I'd mention that. Follow what the manufacturer says about charging, because certain batteries you saw with gel batteries that they are very specific how you have to do it. Only add distilled water when they're low, if they're even serviceable, because the minerals that are in the water are going to settle onto the plates. Do not wear jewelry when servicing a battery. Would you like me to tell you about my buddy who melted his bracelet into his skin because it touched a positive terminal of the battery in the fender well? All right, I won't tell you about it. Never lay tools on the battery. It's a beautiful flat place that hovers stuff, and eventually something falls over, and if it touches both sides of both terminals of the battery, it's going to go fooey. Always wear safety glasses when servicing a battery. And I don't know if I've mentioned my boss when I was younger, who had a battery explode in his face. Scraping scar tissues off your eyeballs for 6 months. There you go. Wear your safety glasses. And if the battery is frozen, allow the electrolyte to defrost before doing any service. If you remember, once a battery discharges, you're left with water. So it's obvious if the car gets a dead battery and sleeps overnight, it might be frozen if it's cold enough. So bring it inside, let it sit inside, let it thaw out, and then hook a charger up to it. It could explode. All right. So slow charging. I do believe I might have shown you this, but we're going to go this way anyway because it goes into service. Slow charging is the only way to bring a battery back to full charge. Fast charging brings it back a majority of the way, but it doesn't top it off. So if you use a charger and you put it on a 40 amp or 60 amp, the only way to finish it off is on that lowest setting, 10 amp, 2 amp. That's why trickle chargers are really good. They take forever, but they're really good. And I think I showed you the times it takes to do this kind of stuff. But just keep that in mind. If you use a fast charger, it's only going to get it so far. It's not going to fully top it off. Right? This is what we were saying last time. Right? Overcharging is bad for gel batteries because it cooks it. It dries out the electrolyte. So you'll end up with a layer of sulfate on the positive plate, and you won't have charging going on anymore. So the battery charger has to be sophisticated enough to lock the charging voltage to a certain range, right? 13.8 to 14.1 is a very narrow window for a battery charger, and that's the only kind of charger you can use for AGM batteries. All right, so now we get into some tests. A battery terminal test. What's that look like? That's a voltage drop test, right? You're going from the center of the terminal to the clamp that's around it. What should that be? It better be 0, right? If voltage drop testing or any voltage testing is the difference between the two leads, right? The clamp that's around the thing has to be the same as the thing. So go right over to the car and touch those two, just like you see in that picture, and it should be less than 0.3 volts. There should be no difference. No difference. If there was 0.3 volts on there, that's 0.3 volts difference on something that's clamped to the other thing. So make sure that it is 0. If you see 0.3 volts, take it off, clean them, put it back on. 0. Has to be 0. Do that on both terminals. I fixed probably about 4 or 5 cars that were no starts that I went out and just did that little test and found dirty terminals. Cleaned them, fixed. I think I told you about that when we talked about voltage drop. Right? Leakage. Once the battery is covered in the yuck, right? The acid oozes out as the charging goes on, and it covers the surface of the battery. Or if the battery is wet, if you take it and you spill water over the top of it, the electrical charge will go across the top of that water to the other terminal and actually be a load and drain your battery. Set the voltmeter to the lowest scale. Connect the negative lead to the negative terminal and run the positive lead across the top of the battery. You'll be horrified to see when all of a sudden you see 3 volts, 6 volts, 5 volts, 9 volts, 10 volts, 12 volts sitting on the top of your battery. Run, if the voltage is present, clean it with baking soda and water and dry it. If you leave it wet, you will find charge escaping across the surface of the battery. Try it. You'll see it. It's pretty amazing. Right? Open circuit voltage test. Basically, you are connecting the voltmeter to the negative and the positive. So let's look at the steps. Stabilize the battery by performing a capacity test and waiting 10 minutes. When you charge a battery or you load it, it becomes active, right? It really takes a punch, and you want to give it time to stabilize out. So if you did a test, by doing the capacity test, you're loading the battery, you're taking a service charge off. Then you wait 10 minutes. Connect the voltmeter across the battery. Measure the voltage to 1/10 of a volt. A reading of 12.4 volts or more indicates the battery has over 75% charge. Okay? So you're measuring just strictly what the battery charge actually is.